Welcome back to the Bold Moves podcast. We are so glad that you've joined us today. This is episode number 29. This is the year of life that people hang desperately on to. Have you ever noticed that?
This is the
29.
Every episode from here on out is going to be called episode 29.
Yes, this was the moment when we were in our prime as a podcast. We are talking about, well, it's just bad behavior. That's what we're talking about today. Bad behavior. I mean,
There's no other way to say it.
There's no other way. We're talking about bad behavior. And why are we talking about that? Well, as followers of Jesus, let's just be real. We find ourselves in a culture that is increasingly turning their backs on even the idea of God.
For sure.
And as we turn into a post-Christian society, we have more and more people who just have no faith in God. And when they see the church, it is the bad behavior. Let's just circle that. Mm-hmm. That's the idea.
Yep.
It's the bad behavior that is the biggest turnoff to Christianity that people see. They see hypocrisy. They see judgment. They see people who say they believe one thing and want to live one way, and then their actions are exactly the opposite of their words. And so that has become the biggest hurdle to overcome in Christianity. And it's just doing so much damage to the kingdom.
It's like this is kind of like an older reference, but remember the Westboro Baptist Church?
Oh,
the picketers, the people that would go out and yell and scream and tell people they were going to hell and everything. Like, that's what I think for the longest time people just have in their mind about who Christians are and what we stand for and what we believe in. And honestly, like, it couldn't be further from the truth.
Right.
Really.
If you are in love with Jesus and you're on mission, like to love others the way that Jesus loved them, what you begin to realize is that Jesus wasn't out there protesting sinners.
Yes.
He was actually the friend of sinners.
Exactly
Like, it is such an opposite approach to how you actually connect with people and lead them to Jesus. And I'll just be honest, about a year ago, I think it was last summer, I had my family down in St. Pete, Florida. We were on the St. Pete Pier, and you're walking out to the pier, and there's Bullhorn guy. He's got his bullhorn out there, and he's yelling at people. And I mean, keep in mind, I think I'm a decent follower of Jesus.
Sure.
I'm a pastor, if nothing else. The guy with his bullhorn got in my face, like bullhorn right up at me, telling me that I needed to repent and that I was going to hell. And I'm going, what are you talking about? You don't even know me.
That's right.
What are you doing? Like, it was such a disaster. Like, it was personally offensive to me because of just the damage he was doing for the kingdom. And to know that that was happening on the regular to everybody who walked by, no matter what, it was the stereotype of total judgment. It was brutal.
Even if it's truth, right? I mean, like, we all need to repent.
Sure. Absolutely.
Right? Like,
it
that's
is
part
true.
of what we have to do as Christians. But it's like the mindset that you have when you get to that point has to be a lot different than somebody screaming at you in your face. That gets you nowhere. It's all in your heart, right? I mean, if it doesn't happen in your heart, then it doesn't mean anything anyway. So.
Yeah. Kristen, your life was transformed by a bullhorn guy, though. That's how you accepted Jesus
I remember
and came to faith. Is that accurate?
Yeah. I was with that guy on the beach.
Unbelievable.
Actually, I was thinking about cancel culture. Our society's so big in that. And I don't know that Jesus, like, really, did he cancel people?
Oh, that's a great,
interesting.
No, it was the Pharisees and the religious leaders that were canceling people. That's a fact.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that behavior, really, I think it hinders a lot of our witness to people when we're just like, no, you're wrong. And
right.
I don't know.
Well, I'm always reminded, we talk about this from time to time, but that encounter with Jesus and Zacchaeus, where he's walking down the street of Jericho. Zacchaeus is the tax collector that everybody hates.
Yep.
He's a little guy. That's what he's known for. He climbs the tree so he can see over the crowd. Jesus sees him and he says, hey, I've got to go to your house today. Like, that was his mission in that moment. And it was all the religious leaders who are grumbling, going, why is Jesus going to hang out with that guy? He's the worst. Does Jesus not know who he is? Jesus knew exactly who Zacchaeus was. That was his mission. And he didn't yell at him. He didn't say, oh, you're a tax collector. You're going to burn in hell for the way you rip off people and treat others. Like, no, he went there to be his friend and to love him and to let him know, hey, there's a better way. And it's in that moment that Zacchaeus, his life has changed. Like, that's a moment of transformation. And it was because Jesus was a friend of sinners. And that matters. I mean, to be clear, being a friend of sinners does not mean that you're condoning what they're doing or telling them, hey, dude, live however you want. It's fine. It's a combination, I believe, of grace and truth. And we talk about that from time to time. That's our culture. You have to let them know that they are loved. Jesus loves them. and there's nothing that they can do about it. Does that mean
right.
that they can live life on their own terms and have no consequences? No. That's where you challenge them with truth, but you don't do that with a bullhorn and with no relationship, right?
Yeah.
That's where being a friend comes into play. You have to have a relationship to be able to speak into someone and have real conversations.
Tim, you and I have known each other for a while, so I just want to say that I'm really proud of you for when you talk about Zacchaeus not making the "say hello to my little friend" joke. I was ready for it. I was waiting for it, and it just never happened. And
for a long time, I couldn't resist that. Yeah,
I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. Yeah. We're kind of moving on to more, mature things.
He's not 29 anymore.
When the reality is, my kids at 17 and 14 years old, I'm just to be clear, fully transparent. Their sense of humor, their maturity level is exactly my sense of humor and my maturity level. We're all the same now. Yeah.
Well, listen, Bold Moves podcast, if we're nothing if not mature. I mean, just look at the artwork on our walls.
It's true. I also have literally a picture of myself behind myself. It's fantastic.
Remember when Pastor Mark was on and we were kind of like poking fun at like all of his people on his wall, and I was like, look around.
Yeah. Another example of hypocrisy and bad behavior. It's so good. Hey, we're going to have a guest on in just a moment. This is a special guest. This guest is actually related to me. It is my sister, Carisa Fisher. She has been a teacher for a very long time, and she calls me from time to time with the best stories. Like if she's had a bad day and has had to deal with just a really bad kid, she calls me and she just rants. She rants for 5 good minutes, and when she's done, the line goes dead. It's that's how it goes.
Do kids have weird, bad behavior sometimes? Is that what you're saying?
She's been teaching kindergarten for a while now, and there are just some delightful stories that she shares. It's just, you would not believe it. It's like, there is no way that is true. So I feel like in honor of talking about bad behavior, we should just talk to my sister and hear some of her stories that she's shared with me. So without further ado, let's enjoy 5 good minutes with my sister, Carisa Fisher. All right, we are honored and privileged to have my sister as a guest on the Bold Moves podcast. Carisa, welcome. It is good to have you.
Thank you so much. It's my privilege to be here as well.
Thank you for saying that. Now, she does attend our St. Pete campus. She is part of the Crossroads family, as well as the Fisher family.
As of course we all know, because you mentioned that about every third
I know, like every week.
I do.
It's so embarrassing.
One of my favorite moments, though, is when I mentioned you and you had skipped. You weren't there. And so it was super awkward.
Was skipping.
You were skipping.
I was out of town.
You were skipping.
That's funny.
Be careful. I am your brother and your pastor. So be careful. Be careful.
It is pretty scary sitting in services when you say things and I know what you're about to say on the topic. And like you say it and I immediately laugh because I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's what I'm talking about.
I know, right there.
Somebody thinks I'm funny. This is great. This is great.
Scary.
Carisa, so we're talking about like the role that behavior plays in our life. Like if you say that you believe something, if you are a Christian, but your behavior does not back that up, like it is devastating to your testimony. That's what people say is the biggest turnoff to Christianity. They love Jesus, but they hate Christians. And so behavior matters. One thing that's always stuck out to me, for how many years have you been a teacher? Would you give me that number?
21 years.
21 years. And for 21 years, my sister has been telling me ridiculous, outrageous stories of kids just behaving horribly. So, Carisa, give us some insight. Talk to us about behavior that you see that would maybe just say, this falls in the category of driving me crazy. I do not like this behavior. What would that look like to you as a teacher?
You want stories or just behavior in general?
Give us stories. Give us examples, Carisa. What do you got?
I got lots of stories, but I will change names.
Yes.
I'll change names. So one of my favorite students that I had because of behavior was named, we'll call him Jafar.
Jafar?
He was when I taught 3rd grade. I have to give him a great name. Jafar was the most fascinating child, but one of my favorite
because he was Middle Eastern and wore a turban and had a staff. And
exactly.
That's not a stereotype. That's from the movie Aladdin.
Yeah. Jafar one time got called to the office in the middle of math, and he came back to the door, and my chair was across the room. So he opens the door and he comes in and he's just like, and I'm like, what's going on? I had no idea. I was just howling. And all the kids just roll their eyes because he was that kid all the time. And I was like, what's going on? And he said, no, I don't need to use the bathroom anymore. And I'm like, why not? Because, well, yesterday after school, and he always closed his eyes. The poop really bad. And when I got to the bathroom, someone else was going. And when I got in there, I pulled down my pants. I just pooped on the floor. And I was like, well, did you clean it up? And he's like, well, I tried, but there was no toilet paper. So I used paper towel. And if you work in a school, we have those brown paper towels.
Oh, yeah. Those aren't good for anything.
They're terrible. And so he tried to flush it, I guess, according to him.
Oh, no.
And it wouldn't flush and it backed up. So I go, did you tell somebody? He's like, yeah. And I was just, okay. Well, I've come to find out they watched the cameras. He went outside and got a stick, came back in the bathroom. They see him go in and he tried to unclog it. And he pulled it out on the stick and carried it from the one building into the cafeteria where he was at and threw it away. Yeah,
that's amazing. You know,
so yeah, Jafar
was an entrepreneur, Carisa. He was an entrepreneur.
He was a problem solver. I mean, hey.
So when he left to get the stick and then came back, did they call that the return of Jafar?
Oh my goodness.
Is that?
Yes,
well played.
Thank you.
Well played.
Yeah, that's good. Let's see. I had another kid this past year. We'll call him Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus, there was a day at school, like all my kids were doing really weird things. I teach kindergarten right now, and he literally would eat his breakfast in our room, and he had French toast. And he literally, I look over at him, and he's wiping the toast on his arm, and then he would lick it, and then he'd wipe it on his. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, "What? What?" And he looked so confused. It's so bizarre. That same day I had a kid who leaned over me and wiped his face on my arm and then licked me. And I'm like, what are you doing? And then the same day I had one of my kids tried to use his face to open the door. So he nosed into his lips and pushed the door. I'm like, what is wrong with you? And then I have a kid in the back of the room, all in one day. He was taking himself and he's doing loogies. He's spitting them out and watching them dangle and then sucking them back in. And he dangled one too far down and it landed on his leg. And then he rolls it around on his leg. And then he wipes it up on his shirt. And I was like, oh. So, yeah.
Oh my
These are my children. These are my joy children.
So just to be clear, this is a normal day. This is what you do. This is what you deal with.
Every day. Yeah. Every just normal day. The best summer, I teach VPK in the summer, and those are the craziest stories. Are spectacular. One kid we had, we'll call him Xander Cage. Xander Cage decided that he was a touchy-feely kid.
Oh,
and I have a teaching partner, his name is Mike, and Mike was teaching, and the kid started rubbing his hands up his legs, up his shorts. And my buddy Mike is like, no. And so I'm just sitting in the back oh, this is the best day of my life. So excited. Well, then later that day, he starts rubbing his face on me. And I was like, what's going on? And he's touching my face. And then he starts licking my arm too. I don't know what it is about kids and licking, but they like to lick.
Yep.
So.
Oh, man.
So, yeah.
That's horrible. Okay. Good to know.
They're lovers. That age.
Oh, man.
They're lovers. They love to lick.
Oh, my goodness. So when you talk about behavior, what's the specific behavior that drives you crazy? Do you see parents that are failing and they make excuses? What are the issues that you run into as a teacher just dealing with behavioral problems? How do you handle that?
The first one that drives me nuts is sneaky kids. Kids that are doing stuff, but they're just... So they always find some way to they'll stir the pot and then they walk away and they're like, look what they're doing. And it's you did that.
Yep.
Those sneaky kids drive me nuts. With me, it's just trying to teach them the right way to do things. We don't do it that way in here. This is how we do it in real life. So
yeah,
it's a lot of practice. practice doesn't make perfect, but practice makes better. So,
oh, that's good. Okay, so I give you a lot of grief and we laugh about your stories, but you have been a great example to a lot of kids for 21 years. Like you honestly have had a big impact on some of those kids. I know that you've seen those kids in later grades and they love you, and you offer stability.
Obviously.
You care about them. You're trying to lead them in a good direction.
Yeah.
And I think that input and that commitment, it matters. You've been a stable force for good in their lives. It matters. It makes a difference.
Thank you.
So well done. Well done.
Yeah, Carisa, I do have a question for you. So we're talking about behavior and kids, and I think this is the perfect opportunity for you to tell us all about the behavior of Pastor Tim, your brother, when he was a kid. Do you have any crazy stories of Pastor Tim that you can tell us?
Crazy stories. The craziest story that comes to mind is it was summertime and my mom worked at the church where my dad was, and they were gone during the day that day. And my brother was bothering me. I don't remember what he was doing, but he went outside and I locked the screen door. Like it was one of those little high hook things.
I
locked the screen door and I was like, I'm locking you out and I'm calling mom. And I didn't really dial. I just picked up the phone and was like, Mom. And he ripped the door off the hinges and was like, don't call mom. And that's all I remember. That was probably the craziest thing. I feel like we got along pretty well when we were kids.
I do too.
How many years apart are you guys?
3.5.
3.5 years.
Okay.
Yep. I'm the older brother. And I run the show. You know how that goes.
Yep.
All the inheritance from our parents comes to me. That's a prearranged deal. So it's taken care of, right?
Yep. Yes. Older, wiser.
Yeah, something like that. I've always said Chris is funnier. She's cooler than me. Yeah, she is.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
she's got it
far.
going on.
So
I believe
far,
it. I believe it.
Well, Carisa, thank you for joining us on the podcast. Thank you for sharing your stories, because those are great examples of bad behavior. That was well done. And a special thanks to your guests, Jafar and Zacchaeus and Xander Cage. We appreciate them all for being allowed to use their real names on the podcast. Thank you.
Hey, if you ever want to hear more stories, just let me know.
All right.
Hey, one more thing about behavior. I remember mom used to say all the time that actions speak louder than words.
Yes.
And that is a big one, especially when you're talking about Christians and their behavior.
Yep.
So,
That's a great mic drop moment.
That's right.
Well done. Well done. Hey,
okay. Well,
thanks,
thank you.
Carisa.
It was nice meeting you all.
Have a great day. We'll see you later.
Bye.
Well, that was my sister, and she had stories that did not disappoint.
You promised, and it was delivered.
I have to be honest, I don't think I could stand being a kindergarten teacher for more than 20 minutes. I think that'd be my limit. I don't think I was wired for that. Kristen, you're an elementary education major.
Yeah,
Does that stuff excite you?
Kindergarten, first grade, I loved it.
So you hear those stories, and you're like, I'm in.
It takes me back. I had one boy, every single day he would sit, when they had their computer stations. This is my favorite. And the mouse was still attached to the wire. Yes. And so he would sit there and lasso it. And the kids next to him would be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Stop.
It's the behaviors that stick out.
Yeah,
you remember
I mean, it was just,
swing the mouse by the tail.
Always entertaining.
It's so good. So,
and my kids right now they're in kindergarten and first grade.
Oh, sure.
Fantastic.
And I've noticed, I'm like, I just love where they're at right now. And I'm like, oh, that's because this is my sweet spot.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So you're wired for those moments.
I love it.
You'd be in that environment and just love it.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, that would drive me crazy.
My oldest is 3, and I'm like, I feel like this is a great time for me, and I'm dreading the next probably 5 to 10 years.
It gets better.
It gets better.
We'll see.
We always had this agreement, Dana and I, that she would just kind of handle the kids from 0 to 12. And then when they're teenagers, I got this. That's my sweet spot. So far, so good. Now they're both teenagers. They are my responsibility.
So her work is done.
Yeah, she's done.
What's Dana doing with her time?
She's just chilling. It's all on me now.
she gives you the raised eyebrow look every time they do something. This is yours.
Your turn
Those
to take that
children.
on. Unbelievable. So what's interesting about my sister's stories? It's interesting. Let's just think through this. The reality is that all the stories that come to mind, hey, talk about a story that you remember.
Yeah.
It's a ridiculous behavior that always sticks in your mind. And I think that when it comes to living out our faith, the same principle is true. And I hate that that's true. You could probably have 100 good experiences with someone who says they're a Christian, but it's that one person who says they're a Christian and just heaps all kinds of judgment on you, or is just completely hypocritical, and you find them in a lie. And that's what you take away. That's what you hold on to. It's like, oh, that's what I think of Christianity. It's someone who's not real. It's someone who's fake. And I hate that that's true. I mean, it's true in like the social media world. Like you get one negative review, it takes like 10 positives to overcome that. It's the same thing in our walk with Jesus. And I think that puts a little bit of pressure on Christians to make sure that we're walking the walk. And a lot of times that ties to, I think, what is an unhealthy mindset of you have to have that performance. Like I'm a Christian, so I have to perform a certain way. And I think that there's a tension there because my relationship with Jesus is not something that I can earn. It's not like I earn my salvation. And yet, if I say that I follow Jesus, it has to affect my behavior. And so I think that there is this healthy tension that exists where I need to be focused on the fact that if I say I'm following Jesus, I need to make sure that what I'm doing, my actions, my behavior matches what I say. Because I am a light. I am pointing people to Jesus. And what they see in me is the view that they're going to have of Jesus.
Well, and that happens with people like as they examine and view Christians just in general, right? But like, you know, the three of us actually, we work at a church. And so like, sometimes it's even that times 10, it feels like that, like
for sure.
expectation that you're more pious than Jesus himself, right?
And that's just all together.
Of
I
course.
have zero issues. I've got it figured out.
And of course, that's not true. Of course, that's not realistic whatsoever. And I don't know. I think over the years, I've learned like the more that I kind of just own my mistakes and my own failures and just fess up to them, own up to them and say, here's who I am.
Yes.
I'm broken, all the same as the rest of you. And
exactly.
This is how God's working in my life. Like I can tell you that, you know, this particular issue, whatever it is, has been something that I've dealt with for a long time. But you know what? The way that I was at age 30 is not the way that I am at age 40. And that's the kind of thing. That's what we want to see at Crossroads. Like, right. That's what it means to become more like Jesus every single day, is not that you actually ever someday arrive and become this unrealistic, lofty position where you can never like mess up or do anything wrong. The point is get better and become more like him every single day and ask for forgiveness for the things that you do and own it. Like people, I think what you identified is what Christians do pretty poorly in the world sometimes is just owning their mistakes. Like people become hypocritical. Instead, they'll say this and do this. And that's what people who are not Christians see. And that's what they dislike.
Oh, it's horrible.
Instead, just own it.
Yes. So I'm going to piggyback off this. I have a story. It's a kid's story into a behavior story.
Here we go.
So my daughter is 5 and she's always been like nothing, like she can't be bothered. That's just her attitude in life. Like I can't be bothered. She never has a problem. Like if we're mad at her, she's like, what is wrong with you? And like, well, you were naughty. That's an amazing
gift to have naturally. Like, really.
So what she's been doing lately is anytime she's in trouble and kind of like what you're saying, like she will not own what she has done. And she looks at us and says, you're breaking my heart. You're making me so sad.
To be clear, I need to interject. I'm a boy dad. I'm not as a dad, I don't know if I could take that. That would work against me. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So I'm just like, May, can you not just acknowledge that you didn't do this, or just apologize? So we're like working through that with her right now, but we do that as Christians. Like, how dare you call me out and say I'm a hypocrite? Well, you are.
You are. And in this culture right now, like I think Generation Z, let's just call out Generation Z, which I believe in. I'm a big fan of Generation Z. Yeah. Right now, what they crave more than anything is authenticity. I mean, that's what they want to say. They want to see something real, and they want to be part of something that's bigger than themselves. And I love that. And my thing is, as the people who are leading them, as the generations that go before them, it's on us to provide that, to be real. And I think if we're just willing to be authentic and say, you know what? Sometimes I mess up. I don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
I think that goes a long way. Because to your point, and what you guys are both saying, if I am not willing to own it, like, oh no, I've got it all together, don't question me.
Right.
It's that hypocrisy that is ruining it. And then when in that hypocrisy, you start judging others and looking at all their problems and ignoring your own, it's really difficult to overcome when you're trying to be a light that points people to Jesus.
And people have a BS meter.
They do. They can sniff it out.
Oh man, because everything. This just is what it is. In 2024, you get marketed to everywhere you go. You pick up your phone. You open a social media app. Like literally every other post is some sort of thing that's trying to sell you something or give you a new product or give you a new this or that. And it's like, eventually people just pick up on that and they want something real and they want something that is authentic. And I'm a big believer in that. And I hope that we continue to be that way at Crossroads. I know that we do our best to try to be that way. And our Crossroads Recovery Ministry is the perfect place for authentic people to just be who they are and to say, hey, I need Jesus.
Yes.
I'm imperfect. There's nothing about me that's perfect.
And to be clear, that's for all of us.
That's exactly right.
It's for all of us.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Jeez. I think the takeaway today is we just have to remember that people are watching us. Yeah. And I don't think that needs to add a layer of tension or weight to us. Like there's some crazy expectation that I can't live up to. I think it's just a realization of the fact that I need to be honest. If I'm just willing to be real, to be authentic, not play games, and just say, yeah, I'm figuring this out as I go. I'm so thankful for the love that Jesus has for me and that he's patient with me. I'm working on this too. Come join me in the journey. I think that attitude and that mindset resonates so much better in our culture today than someone who pretends like they've got it all together.
Yeah,
and why play that game? Why play that game? Yeah. I want to leave today with these words from Matthew chapter 5. They're good words because they're the words of Jesus. Yeah.
That helps. Yeah.
So let's just leave with this scripture. Jesus says this, "You are the light of the world, like a city on a hilltop that cannot be hidden. No one lights a lamp and then puts it under a basket. Instead, a lamp is placed on a stand where it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your good deeds shine out for all to see so that everyone will praise your heavenly Father." That's perfect. Live on good behavior. Own it when you don't have it all together. Yeah. And may you live your life in such a way that is a light that shines and points people toward Jesus. Yep. I mean, the goal is that people see the way that I'm living and Jesus is attractive to them because of that. Yeah. And so let's just make that our goal today. The bold move is, let's live like Jesus. Let's be willing to be bold enough to say, I don't have it all together sometimes.
Yes, for sure.
And continue doing our best to pursue Jesus and become more like him. Yeah.
No question.
I love it. I think that wraps us up. Let's be bold together when it comes time to make your move. Guys, be bold. We'll see you next time.